Alright, people. Review of the week time. So, recording this actually quite early for a change. I normally do these review of the weeks about 9 p.m. Recording this at exactly 20 minutes past 6 on a Sunday. So, we have a lot to talk about. We have a lot to go over. First and foremost, we got to talk about Boots Ennis versus Staniones. Now, I haven't seen the rest of the undercard. I've only just seen Boots and Staniones, and that was the main show that was on. There was a show on in Dublin last night. It was on the Zone. I did watch some of the fights on it. It was alright. It was good fun. Nice little domestic show, but not really anything there to really necessarily talk about. It's really kind of the next 2 weeks where we have, oh boy, where something is definitely going to hit the fan. And I think you know what I mean. So yeah, let's talk about Boots Ennis. So he going into this fight, I was worried about him. I'm not going to lie, I was. Not of him, well, I say losing. It's at the end of the day, whoever made the best man win. But if someone loses a fight, I would want them to lose because the better man won on the night, not because the weight defeated him. And when I seen a pic of Boots Ennis on Wednesday night, honestly, he looked terrible. He looked dreadful. He really did. It's quite a worrying sight. And the DAZN commentary were making reference to the fact that Boots, when they asked him what he going to have for breakfast, he was saying everything, implying he was malnourished. God knows when the last time he had a proper meal was, and it wasn't good. It didn't look good. And I was worried that regardless of the IBF rehydration clause, which is waived for this because of unification, I was kind of like, oh God, is he going to have any strength even without that? Well, I didn't need to worry about anything because he looked brilliant in there. His legs seemed back underneath him. Not that they were gone necessarily, but he didn't seem to have poise in them in the past few fights. Looked good in terms of his legs, movement was good, shot selection was brilliant. Defense though, Boots Ennis, defense. There's times there against Staniones he was getting hit with silly shots. It just seemed like he was switching off sometimes. I really don't want to see that. I like seeing fighters just on it like a car bonnet for the duration of the fight. Don't be switching off. That's the one. If I had one bit of criticism about Boots in this fight, it is that. But other than that, I thought he looked absolutely brilliant in there. I'm glad to see that he is looking back to his old form. I didn't think he looked that bad against Avanesi, and against Karen. I'm not even going to try and do the last name. I'm just going to call him Karen. But yeah, he didn't look particularly good last time around, fair enough. But I think this time it's a return to form. If he can do the weight safely now, that he's not having to adhere to the IBF check weight, okay. But I would love to see him up at 154 pounds. At 154 pounds though, he really can't be affording to make those defensive lapses that he was making. He really can't afford to be doing that. Eddie Hearn has been singing his praise, as you, of course, he would. He's at 27 and he's already pound for pound. I wouldn't argue that he could be on the pound for pound list. Yeah, definitely. He's very talented as Boots Ennis, tremendously talented. But he's also saying that him against Crawford is the biggest fight to make. Crawford and Canelo is going to absolutely do baseball numbers, in my opinion. That fight is massive. So I think you're going to struggle to beat Crawford Canelo, to be honest with you. And where's the incentive for Terence Crawford? He's pretty much been talking about fighting Canelo, well, pretty much since even before he fought Israel Madrimov, he was mentioning Canelo. That's the only fight for him that Crawford even wants. He's not going to stick around for anything other than Canelo Alvarez. It's as simple as that. So yeah, that fight, we'd love to see it, but it's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. A fight that Frank Warren seems to think might be happening or might be able to happen, I personally hope for this fighter's sake and development, it doesn't. Frank Warren, I think Itauma could fight for a world title this year. Who knows? He may fight Usyk this year. I don't think Itauma needs to fight for a world title this year, and I certainly don't think he needs to be fighting Alexander Usyk, to be honest with you. If you want to break Mike Tyson's record, you have to fast track someone. Fair enough, right? I get that. He's not going to break that record. So now the fast tracking, we can rein it in a little bit, right? Because I think Itauma needs to develop. If you think about it like this, right? When Anthony Joshua was fast tracked, right? He was fighting for a British title. There was talk he'd be fighting for a European title. They then went and fought Charles Martin, became world champion. Now, Charles Martin was an easy touch, right? He was weak world champion, one of the worst we've had, right, in terms of the heavyweight division. But a year later, he's in there with Klitschko. A year later, he's unifying. He's fighting Povetkin. He's fighting Carlos Takam. He's fighting Andy Ruiz and losing. it meant that, and he was willing to do it. He understood the responsibility, so credit to him. And there was no shying away, no ducking any obligations. Credit to Anthony Joshua in the most high, right? But he could have done so much with fighting for a European title, fighting Takam in not a world title fight, just to, final eliminator or something like that. I think that could have actually paid much more dividends to Anthony Joshua, because the pressure that was put on him, once he won that world title, the pressure was massive. And Anthony Joshua was in his mid to late 20s at the time. Itauma turned 20 just after Christmas. He's a kid. I want to see him just be developed properly. Now that we know he's not going to break Tyson's record, okay, let's rein him in. All right. I think he has the talent to fight for a world title this year. Yeah, I do. I think he's the talent. But I think from a just development-wise, fire development, and Frank is good with development. He really is. So I'm hoping that's just a little bit of, this, because Frank, the proof is in the pudding at the end of the day. How many people has Frank brought from, prospect to British to world title? Frank knows what he's doing. He's a good eye for talent. And I think Frank will guide Itauma, or the people, certainly Frank and Queensbury will guide him. I just think Usyk, no. I'd be amazed if they did. I don't think they will, to be honest with you. I really don't. What else do we have here? Now, we're getting closer to Canelo versus Skull, and I done a video talking about this already, and I'll just talk about it very, very briefly here. Once again, we're looking at Martin Piccoli, and we're potentially looking at him making some mistakes. Now, he made a big, gaping, flipping, massive mistake by taking the fight with Joseph Parker on 2 days' notice, no training camp to speak of, and arriving in Saudi on the morning of the fight. Big mistake. He was very heavy. And now, 3 weeks to go before the fight, he's in sweatsuits trying to lose water weight when he's a heavyweight. It makes no sense. It's honestly, it just, when I seen it, I was like, what the hell is that? I couldn't believe what I was saying. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. So for me, it's like, man, I was favouring him heavily over the Jagba. And even was favouring him after the, not as much, but favouring him after the knockout loss. It wasn't a devastating knockout loss in that regard. He was floored, equilibrium went, and the corner threw in the towel. They knew what they were doing, saved him for this fight, fair enough. But now I'm worried, is he going to be absolutely, weight drained, which is crazy for a heavyweight. But why in God's name are you taking water weight away? Well, you don't need to. You are not trying to make a weight. It just baffled me. Some things that these fighters do, I just look and think, what the hell? What are you gaining from that? Oh, when I stand on the scales, I'll be 30 pounds lighter. Brilliant. Be better to do it the right way than to just, dehydrate yourself. For a heavyweight, again, because F.A. Jagba won't be dehydrated. Just saying. Now, this is I feel for Badu Jack here, now I have to say. So, Badu Jack was meant to fight Ryan Rozatski, I think is how you say his name. He was to challenge Badu Jack for the WBC Cruiserweight title, which I thought Badu Jack vacated, right, originally, but apparently not. Well, he's now apparently injured. So, in steps Noel McCallion, I think I've always butchered that guy's name. Now, he is the WBC champion in recess. Is this making any sense to you? It's not making any sense to me, but this is the WBC for you. We will talk about them more later on in this video. Bivol's got to be mentioned, so we'll talk about them there. So apparently he's going to step in and face Badu Jack. That's a harder fight. That Noel McCallion guy, arguably a lot of people had him beating Myris Breedis a couple of years ago. I think that fight happened in America. So I think that's an even tougher test for Badu Jack. But what I will say is, if you think you've seen some bad officiating in the UK, you ain't seen nothing until you've seen Badu Jack in Saudi Arabia or the Middle East in general, because he is the darling of boxing over there. And that fight he had against that, I can't remember his name now, it was on the undercard of AJ Usyk too. That was madness. That was absolute madness. Really was. Conor Ben posted a picture of himself there by the pool. He is looking massive. I mean, his quads look absolutely huge. Looks like he's packed a lot of muscle up in the chest region and the shoulder region. He's looking quite round there. So Conor Ben, I mean, if he is going to be fighting at welterweight post Chris Eubank Jr. win or lose, good luck getting down to that weight. He's not done it in 3 years. He's packed on loads of muscle, right? So it's not like he's just, can trim a bit of weight off. No, he's packed on loads of muscle, and I don't think this is a good look for him. Certainly, I just... You're never going to be physically as strong as Chris Eubank Jr. He's naturally bigger. And someone tell Conor Ben that packing on a load of muscle, especially if you fight the way you do, where you rely on movement and fluidity, it's going to get rid of that, and it's going to slow you down. So, I don't know. I'm looking at Conor Ben, and I'm thinking you're probably going in there for the KO and not looking to, stick around or anything like that. It's probably the best thing to do, to be honest with you, because I don't see him outboxing. I know Chris Eubank is not a great boxer, but I don't really see him outboxing him either. So, Conor Ben's looking in very, very good shape. He's looking huge, but it's still not making me think he's going to win this fight. I'm still favouring Chris Eubank Jr. to win this fight. I really am. Keyshawn Davis is set to defend his world title against Edwin De Los Santos. Didn't he fight in Norfolk, Virginia? Not a place I really associate much with boxing, the state of Virginia. Didn't he fight Shakur? And if he did, it's not a fight I remember, which is a lot of Shakur's fights, unfortunately. Now, the British Boxing Board of Control have ordered a rematch between David Alaye and Jamie TKV, which in one sense is a good thing. Obviously, last weekend they had their fight. It wasn't a great fight. It stirred up a lot of controversy because the shot that really ended the fight, was thrown when the referee had struck the break. And it was, whatever you want to say about the shot, but it was terrible officiating by the referee. And I thought, awful officiating. It really was. The British Boxing Board of Control need to act on that. They've ordered a rematch, which is fair enough. The first fight was not compelling viewing, apart from the controversy. Now, controversy does sell, so that would probably sell this fight. But look, we watched the first 6 rounds. We watched it live. I watched it live on my channel. Not the whole fight, not the fight actual live, but we did a watch along. And it wasn't compelling viewing for the 6 rounds. So I'm not really looking forward to the fight in that sense. I would favour David Alaye again, to be honest with you. I really would. I think he's probably going to be able to hurt TKV. He knows he can hurt him, so I'm favouring Alaye to win this fight. But why have they not, if they know a mistake, so the British Boxing Board of Control ordered an immediate rematch, so they know a mistake was made. Order a no contest. I don't see why they haven't gone and made this fight a no contest. I really don't. I think they should. I think they really should make this fight a no contest. They absolutely should. What else do we have now? We also seen earlier this week. It's weird, right? I'm looking at the news here, right? I'm looking at the news on the ring, and it's not been it's weird because it seemed like there was always something to talk about this week, but there's not been a great deal happening in the boxing world this week. I do see where Mauricio Sulaiman, the WBC president, is he's not best pleased with Dimitri Bivol. He's not best pleased with Dimitri Bivol because Dimitri Bivol vacated his WBC title, which he won of Artur Beterbiev, rather than go ahead and face his mandatory in Dave Benavidez. And Sulaiman is out here throwing his toys out of the pram. For one, Sulaiman, you're a head of a sanctioning body. You're not a promoter. That's a promoter's job to be doing this and getting the hype and this, that, and the other, right? You're criticising Bivol for not defending his title against Dave Benavidez, right? How many years was Benavidez mandatory for Canelo? 1, 2, thereabouts? When did you ever order that fight? Oh, you didn't. No, you didn't. So you're very selective when it comes to your champions. You give Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury free run to do whatever the hell they want when they had that belt of heavyweight. But if Bivol or Beterbiev or a female boss, Savannah Marshall, if someone who is just a throwaway champion, oh well, then we'll chuck mandatories at you. Oh, then you got to do this. But if you're, if you're Tyson Fury, if you're Canelo, if you're the Charlos or someone, the champions that you are in the WBC witness protection, let's just say that. Vitaly Klitschko, for God's sake. I mean, how many years was he champion for without defending? It got to have been about 2 or 3. Seriously, I mean, the WBC are a joke. I don't blame Dimitri Bivol for chucking that belt in the trash. And considering the fact, right, that Bivol, unbelievable, I thought it was disgraceful, carry on, the way the WBC were basically making it as though he couldn't fight for the title because of where he was from. Disgraceful carry on from Sulaiman. Absolutely disgraceful. So, again, I've said this before about the WBC. Someone like Sullivan and the WBA as well, they're not good either. They really aren't. What they're doing is, by basically showing that we have our favourite fighters, that will make the rules up as we go along. You could be mandatory challenger, but if you're if this is the champion, you might have to wait 2 years. All this, where's the incentive for fighters to want to actually have WBC sanctioned bouts? Where's the incentive for them to want to get ranked? To go and pay sanction fees to WBC. Where's the incentive when they know, all right, I could fight in WBC eliminators and I could be mandatory, but how many years am I going to have to wait? Will they ever call the mandatory? Whereas the WBO, the IBF, oh, well, if I'm mandatory with them, chances are I'll get a crack. And, they'll put the pressure on. They're not without faults. I mean, Errol Spence was, 5 years, and he had one mandatory with the IBF. I know obviously he was injured for a part of that, but you know what I mean. So they're not without flaws, certainly not. But they have a lot more integrity, certainly, than the other two. Certainly they have that. They really, truly do. Again, one of the big things this week was the Jarrell Miller. Oh my good Lord. Jarrell Miller and Fabio Wardley. They had their face-to-face, their press conference, their kickoff show at Portman Road. I just don't want that to fall. At Portman Road. And good Lord, it was... It's always the way with Big Baby. He is a controversial character. He is someone who likes to stir things up, to say the least. And this fight was sold to me just when it was announced, because I thought, it's going to be an epic fight. It's going to be epic, the styles, everything. But Big Baby went above and beyond. He went above and beyond to get under the skin of pretty much everyone there, including Frank Warren. So let's wait and see. I think it's going to be an epic fight. I really do. And I think he definitely sold that fight, certainly for me, from the outside looking in. Before we finish up here, because I don't even think we've gone over the 20-minute mark, let's see what kind of news we have on the old boxing scene. Now, I did see that Ellie Scottney has now signed with Jake Paul at MVP. All right? And that is a big move. So what Jake Paul essentially is doing is he's signing all these female fighters. They're going to be fighting on Netflix. They're going to be doing their own female shows. There you go. I mean, I think that's the way forward. Do an all-female show. And there you go. So they're obviously getting well paid. Jake Paul is doing some great work with them. Amanda Serrano, I think she's got one foot out the door, because if you see the way she's obviously fighting KT, we know that, but when you see her, when you silence her, when you see her with Jake Paul, she has the look of an exec. It's like, all right, you're the fighter, you're the promoter, but realistically, I think she's a lot higher up than just that. So look, credit to her. Amanda Serrano's a great girl. So I think that when she retires, she will be right up there. I mean, she'll probably be one of the spearheads of MVP. And like I said, Ellie Scottney is a good fighter. Eddie Hearn, that's a loss, because again, she's a good fighter, entertaining fighter. Not the biggest puncher, Ellie Scottney, not the biggest puncher, but very entertaining nonetheless. What else do we have here? My boxing scene. Now, I did see Michael Hunter. Now, I didn't see his fight, but I see Michael Hunter actually fought the weekend in Mexico. He was meant to be fighting Christopher Lovejoy. Didn't happen. I wonder why. I would imagine that's probably all down to one Christopher Lovejoy. That guy. Why you signed to fight him is beyond me. But ayo. What else do we have here? There's not a great deal. Like, I'm looking through boxing scene here. Josh Warrington headed Michael Conlan's comeback foe in ring return. Yeah, Conlan, Conlan is back in the summer, but Warrington is Dalton Smith is fighting this weekend, isn't he? I'll just make sure. I'm pretty sure he is. Because I know we've obviously got Liam Cameron versus Ben Whittaker this weekend, and I think they're fighting on Easter Sunday. Yeah, the 19th. So Dalton Smith is fighting on the 19th, which I believe is a Saturday up in Sheffield. Yes, it is Saturday. And Josh Warrington is facing Azad Asif Khan, who actually, oh my God, you could be a little bit more with the matchmaking, That's the guy Conlon made his return against. And now Warrington is going to fight him in a 10-rounder. Oh, come on. Really? Really? I just laugh because I just look at that and just think they are literally desperate to make this fight, aren't they? They are literally desperate to make Mick Conlan versus Josh Warrington. Josh Warrington will probably stop Mick Conlan, to be honest with you. Mick Conlan's punch resistance looks absolutely shot to bits. I mean, Jordan Gill was finished when he fought Conlan, and he looked like he was in his absolute prime when he was fighting him. So Conlan, man, he is done. What else do we have here? Is there anything really else? There's not a great deal. Like I said, it's not been much. There's not been much. So after that, I will leave it there. So, review of the week for another week done. I hope you all enjoyed it. I really do. Been a lot of stuff going on over the last couple of days. Behind the scenes stuff. Me and I have been working on a few things, so stay tuned for that. Obviously, the Ring magazine, that kind of stuff is going well. I did a video for them. Hopefully, it should be up at some point this week. Stay tuned for that on their site as well. So yeah, a lot of good stuff going on here. This weekend, so I'm going home for Easter, and we've a few things planned back home. So I'm staying home for a couple of weeks, 2 weeks. I'm staying home for 2 weeks back in Ireland. So I will be home on Thursday. I fly out of London City Thursday morning, and then I am home in Ireland for a couple of weeks. So we will get the old scenery back for a little while anyway. And yeah, I have a few ideas of things I want to do when I get back home for the channel and stuff like that. So we'll wait and see how that goes. But for now, I will leave it there. I hope you all have a great week. If you could, smash the like button, hit subscribe, all of that good stuff. We're only literally a handful of subscribers of 23,100. 25 is the next one, and then so on and so forth. It's crazy. We're doing really well on here. We're doing really well. And I thank you all from the bottom of my heart for that. I hope you enjoyed this video. Smash the like button. Peace.